Would you believe I was going to be speaking on Jonah this morning?
Vil I tro det, jeg skulle have talt om Jonas her til morgen?
If you notice your program, my message is entitled A Fish Out of Water.
Og hvis I lægger mærke til programmet, så står der, at der er en fisk, som er ude af vandet. Det var titlen.
But after Brother Andrew stole my sermon notes last night, I changed my message.
Men efter at bror Andreas stjal mit udkast i går aftes, så ændrede jeg budskabet.
And I've decided to bring to you a different Bible character.
Jeg tænkte, jeg ville komme med en anden af Bibelens karakterer til jer i stedet for.
2 days ago, I was flying in from Copenhagen to come here to Randers.
For 2 dage siden, der fløj jeg fra København for at komme her til Randers.
It's only a 25-minute flight.
Det er kun 25 minutter på fly.
But I started talking to a businessman from Denmark sitting next to me.
Men jeg begyndte at tale med en forretningsmand her fra Danmark, der sad ved siden af mig.
And he asked me why I was coming here.
Og han spurgte, hvorfor skulle jeg herover?
I told him I was coming to be with some young people who are going to put their lives into missionary service.
Jeg sagde, jeg kom for at være sammen med nogle unge mennesker, der vil give deres liv i missionstjeneste.
He seemed very surprised.
Og han så vældig forbavset ud.
He says, here in Denmark?
Og sagde, her i Danmark?
I said, yes.
Ja.
He said, how many will be there?
Jeg sagde, hvor mange vil der være?
I think he thought I would be the only one.
Han troede sikkert, jeg ville være den eneste.
I didn't know how many would be here.
Jeg vidste ikke, hvor mange der ville være her.
And evangelists are often accused of exaggerating.
Og evangelister bliver ofte beskyldt for at overdrive.
So I decided to be really conservative.
Så jeg besluttede mig for at være virkelig konservativ.
I said about 2,000.
Jeg sagde omkring 2.000.
He says, yeah, that many?
Ja, så mange?
I wish I knew which hotel he was staying in. I'd like him to come here tonight.
Jeg ville ønske, at jeg vidste, hvilket hotel han var i, for jeg vil gerne have, at han skulle være her i aften.
Because I think you all are having a good time.
For jeg tror, han vil virkelig have det godt.
And there's several thousand of you.
Og der er forskellige tusind af jer.
I just want to thank you for allowing me to have this small share in your lives this morning.
Og jeg vil gerne takke jer for, at jeg må få lov til at få denne lille andel af jeres liv her til formiddag.
My subject this morning is entitled
Mit emne her i formiddag er
The Preparation and the Portrait of God's Servant.
Forberedelsen og portrættet af Guds tjener.
I am going to quote for you one verse.
Jeg vil citere et vers for jer.
You don't need to turn to
I
it.
behøver ikke at slå det op.
But in order to maintain continuity, I will give it completely in English before we translate it.
Men for at det skal være lidt sammenhæng i det, så giver jeg det helt på engelsk, før vi oversætter det.
It is not the kind of verse you enjoy memorizing.
Det er ikke den slags vers, du kan lide at lære udenad.
But after you've read it,
Men når du har læst det,
you see why God put it there.
så kan du se, hvorfor Gud har sat
So
det der.
please follow me now.
Så følg med nu.
This is what it says
Det er, hvad der står
in Luke chapter 3
i Lukas 3,
and the first verse.
det første vers.
In the 15th year of Tiberius Caesar, Pontius Pilate being governor of Judea, Herod being tetrarch of Galilee, Philip being tetrarch of Iturea and Trachonitis, Lysanias being tetrarch of Abilene, Annas and Caiaphas being the high priest, the word of the Lord came to John in the wilderness.
I kejser Tiberius 15. regeringsår, da Pontius Pilatus var landshøvding i Judæa, og Herodes var landsfyrste i Galilea, og hans bror Philip landsfyrste i Iturea og Trachonis land, og Lysanias landsfyrste i Abilene, mens Annas og Caiaphas var ypperste præster, der kom Guds ord til Johannes, Zacharias søn, i ørkenen.
There's 7 who's here.
Der er 7 her fra den blå bog.
You know, there's Pontius Pilate,
Der er Pontius Pilatus,
there's Herod,
der er Herodes,
there's Philip,
der er Philip,
and there's the 2 high priests,
og der er de 2 ypperste præster.
there's Tiberius Caesar.
Der er Caesar, eller kejser Tiberius.
But the word of the Lord comes to a funny man wearing funny clothes, eating funny food.
Men Guds ord kom til en mærkelig mand, der spiste mærkelig mad og gik et mærkeligt tøj. Johannes.
God always retains his sovereignty in choosing his servants.
Gud vinder altid sin suverænitet ved at vælge sine tjenere.
Think of this.
Prøv at tænke på det her.
He raised Moses in a palace in order to use him in a desert.
Han lod Moses opvokse i et palads for at bruge ham i en ørken.
He raised Joseph in a desert in order to use him in a palace.
Og han lod Josef vokse op i en ørken for at bruge ham i et palads.
He works in strange ways.
Han virker på mærkelig vis.
But his ways are always effective.
Men hans veje er altid effektive.
Now here's my question to you.
Her er så mit spørgsmål til jer.
How does God mold you and me in order to serve him well and effectively?
Hvordan former Gud dig og mig til, at vi kan tjene ham virkelig effektivt?
The important thing is not to be successful, it is to be effective as God wants you to be effective.
Det er ikke det vigtige at være succesrig, men det er at være effektiv, sådan som Gud vil have det.
Let me select one man who was 30 years old, called to do an extraordinary task.
Lad mig vælge en mand, som var 30 år gammel, og som blev valgt til at gøre et ekstraordinært arbejde.
His name was Ezekiel.
Hans navn var Ezekiel.
He lived in the southern kingdom of Judah.
Han levede i sydriget Juda,
And God had a tremendous message for him.
og Gud havde et vældigt budskab til ham.
He had to tell his people that their beloved city of Jerusalem was going to be destroyed.
Han skulle fortælle sit elskede folk, at deres by Jerusalem skulle ødelægges.
How do you tell your own people that your sacred city is going to be destroyed by a pagan enemy?
Hvordan fortæller du dit eget folk, at deres hellige by skal ødelægges af en hedensk fjende?
And God molded him in order to prepare him for that.
Og Gud formede ham, så han blev forberedt til det.
Let me share with you some of God's workings in Ezekiel's life.
Lad mig dele med jer noget af det, Gud gjorde i Ezekiels liv.
The first thing God wanted was a man who was sensitive to a huge burden.
Det første Gud ville have, det var en mand, der var følsom for en mægtig byrde.
Not just of his family,
Ikke bare i hans familie,
not just of his community,
ikke bare i hans samfund,
but an entire nation.
men i en hel nation.
That's what God had to do in his life.
Det var det, Gud måtte gøre i hans liv.
Make him sensitive to a whole nation.
Gør ham følsom over for en hel nation.
You and I are living in extremely critical days.
Du og jeg lever i nogle yderst kritiske dage.
And during a crisis time, nobody can rest comfortably.
Og i en krisetid er der ingen, der kan hvile sig behageligt.
I remember a couple of years ago, I was flying in a plane between Toronto, Canada and Chicago in Illinois.
Jeg kan huske, at for nogle år siden fløj jeg i et fly fra Toronto i Canada til Chicago i Illinois.
And halfway through that flight, we knew our plane was in trouble.
Og halvvejs undervejs, der opdagede vi, at flyet var i problemer.
And finally, the captain turned on the microphone to tell us this.
Og endelig så tog kaptajnen mikrofonen for at sige os dette.
He says, ladies and gentlemen, we are in an emergency position.
Han sagde, mine damer og herrer, vi er i en nødsituation.
We have lost all our hydraulic fluid and cannot bring down our landing equipment.
Vi har mistet alt vores hydrauliske væske, og vi kan ikke få landingsstellet ned.
So we are going to have to dump our fuel before we go in for a crash landing at the airport.
Så vi vil lade al benzinen komme ud, før vi skal lave en nødlanding.
And as we were circling Chicago, we could see the ambulances and the fire engines and the police cars lining along the runway.
Og før vi kom ned i Chicago, så kunne vi se, at der var brandbiler og ambulancer op langs landingsbanen.
I noticed something very interesting.
Og jeg lagde mærke til noget meget interessant.
Nobody was sleeping.
Der var ingen, der sov.
Everybody was awake.
Alle var vågne.
Nobody was saying anything.
Ingen sagde nogen ting.
There was only one slightly humorous moment, but nobody laughed.
Der var kun et enkelt lille smule humoristisk øjeblik, men ingen lå.
See, the captain told us to put our head between our knees
Fordi kaptajnen bad os om at sætte hovedet ned mellem knæene
and to hold on to our ankles.
og holde fast i anklerne.
That's the emergency landing position.
Det er nødstillingen, når du skal lande.
And there was one man who was so huge, he could not get his head between his knees.
Og der var en mand, der var så stor, han kunne ikke få hovedet ned mellem knæene.
And I wanted to chuckle, but it was too serious a moment.
Og jeg ønskede at le, men det var for alvorligt et øjeblik.
You've all heard the story of the plane that was crashing,
Jeg har alle sammen hørt historien om flyet, der var faldt ned.
and people didn't know what to do.
Og folk vidste ikke, hvad der skulle ske.
There was a minister there wearing his white collar,
Og der var en præst der med sin hvide krave.
so the stewardess ran to him,
Så løb stewardessen hen til ham
said, Mr. Minister, please do something religious.
og sagde, herre præst, gør dog noget religiøst.
Mr. Minister, please do something religious.
Herre præst, gør noget religiøst.
So he stood up and took the offering.
Så stod han op og samlede kollekten ind.
Well, I would have been glad to take an offering,
Jeg ville meget gerne have optaget en kollekt.
but the condition was critical.
Men situationen var kritisk.
Nobody rests when the world is in trouble.
Der er ingen, der hviler, når verden er i problemer.
Certainly not the believer.
Sandelig ikke de troende i hvert fald.
Ezekiel saw his nation in turmoil,
Ezekiel så, at hans nation var i problemer.
and God had to take this huge problem and shrink it into his tiny heart.
Og Gud måtte tage det enorme problem, og så krympe det, så det kunne være i hans hjerte.
How did he do it?
Hvordan gjorde han det?
He said, "Son of man, lie on your left side for 390 days."
Han sagde, menneskesøn, læg dig på din venstre side i 390 dage.
Ezekiel had a very reasonable question.
Ezekiel havde et meget fornuftigt spørgsmål.
Why?
Hvorfor?
He said, because the northern kingdom has gone into captivity and will be in captivity for 390 years.
Han sagde, at det nordlige rige, det er kommet ind i fangenskab, og det skal være i fangenskab i 390 år.
You lie for 390 days.
Så du kan ligge der i 390 dage.
One day symbolizing 1 year of captivity.
Og en dag skal symbolisere 1 år i fangenskab.
Ezekiel lay down.
Og Ezekiel lagde sig.
Then God says, I got some good news for you.
Og så sagde Gud til ham, jeg har nogle gode nyheder til dig.
390 days are over.
De 390 dage er forbi.
You can now get up.
Nu kan du rejse dig.
And Ezekiel was very pleased.
Og det behagede Ezekiel.
He says, but now would you flip over and lie on your right side?
Og sagde, vil du så vende dig og lægge dig på din højre side?
Because now you're going to symbolize the captivity of the south.
For nu skal du symbolisere fangenskabet af syden.
What do you think Ezekiel's first question was?
Hvad tror du Ezekiels første spørgsmål var?
How long is the south going to be in captivity for?
Hvor længe skal syden være i fangenskab?
God says, I got some great news for you.
Og Gud sagde, jeg har store gode nyheder til dig.
40 years.
40 år.
After 390, 40 was a picnic.
Efter 390, så var 40 den rene udflugt.
So he lay on his right side for 40 days.
Så han lå på højre side i 40 dage.
God says, now get up.
Og Gud sagde, stå op.
Now would you please do something else?
Og vil du så gøre noget andet?
Would you get up in the early hours of the morning
Vil du stå tidligt op om morgenen?
and cut a hole in one of your walls
Og så lave et hul i en af dine mure?
and put a small bag over your back?
Og så kom en lille pose over ryggen?
Put a little food in that bag
Og kom en lille smule mad i denne
and
pose?
try to slip out of that hole in the wall.
Og så prøv på at krybe igennem dette hul i muren.
And one of your curious neighbors is going to ask you, what are you doing?
Og en af dine nysgerrige naboer vil spørge, hvad er det du laver?
And you say to him at an hour that you don't expect, you will be dragged from your homes into captivity.
Og du vil sige til ham på et tidspunkt, som du ikke forventer det, der vil du blive slæbt ud af dine hjem i fangenskab.
So Ezekiel cut a hole in one of his walls.
Så Ezekiel lavede et hul i en af sine mure.
How many of you would want to be married to him?
Hvor mange af jer vil gerne være gift med ham?
Strange man,
Mærkelig mand,
doing strange things.
som gør mærkelige ting.
The word of the Lord had come to him.
Herrens ord var kommet til ham.
Then God says another thing.
Så siger Gud en anden ting.
Would you please take a frying pan,
Vil du tage en stegepande
put it in front of your face,
og holde den op for dit ansigt
and walk around the city walls a few times?
og gå rundt om bymuren flere gange?
Somebody's going to stop and ask you what you are doing.
Og der er nogen, der vil standse dig og spørge, hvad laver du?
And tell him that the siege like iron is closing in on you.
Så sig til dem, at det er belejringen som jern, den vil nærme sig jer.
So Ezekiel did that.
Og det gjorde så Ezekiel.
Then God said to him, shave your head completely bald.
Så sagde Gud til ham, barber dig fuldstændig skaldet på hovedet.
Take the hair and divide it into 3 lots.
Og tag håret og del det i 3 bunker.
Chop up one lot with a sword.
Og skær en bunke i stykker med et sværd.
Toss the second one into the flames.
Tag den anden og smid ind i flammerne.
Scatter the third into the wind.
Og så del den tredje og lad den flyve i vinden.
But take a little portion from each and tie it at the hem of your garment.
Men tag en lille smule af hver og bind det til randen af din kappe.
And Ezekiel said, why?
Og Ezekiel sagde, hvorfor?
God says a third of my people are going to die by the sword.
En tredjedel af jer vil blive udlagt af sværdet.
A second group of them are going to burn by fire.
En anden gruppe af dem vil brænde i ild.
A third will be scattered to the uttermost parts of the earth.
Og den tredje vil blive delt ud over verdens ender.
But I will preserve a remnant from each of these.
Men jeg vil bevare en rest for hver af dem.
Then God made one more request.
Så bad Gud om en ting til.
Ezekiel,
Would
you take such and such a food?
Vil du spise den og den mad?
Cook it over such and such a fuel.
Og så vil du brænde eller stege den over den og den ild.
And eat it.
Og spis den.
You know what Ezekiel said?
Og ved du hvad Ezekiel sagde?
He said, I want to talk to you for a moment, Lord.
Herre, jeg vil gerne lige tale lidt med dig.
So far, I've done everything you asked me to do.
Indtil nu har jeg gjort alt, hvad du har bedt mig om.
I've shaved my head.
Jeg har barberet hovedet.
There's a hole in my wall.
Der er hul i min mur.
I walked with a frying pan.
Jeg har gået med en
I've
stegepande.
laid on my left side and right side.
Jeg har ligget på venstre side og højre side.
But you're asking me to do something that's not right.
Men du beder mig om at gøre noget, der ikke er rigtigt.
What you have asked me to eat
Det du har bedt mig om at spise,
is not kosher.
det er ikke kosher.
And God says, all right, I'll change the recipe.
Og godt sagde Gud, jeg ændrer recepten.
Only to remind you,
Bare for at minde dig om,
when you're in captivity,
når du er i fangenskab,
you will be forced to eat foods you despise.
så vil du blive tvunget til at spise mad, du foragter.
But men like you will stand in a position of intercession before me,
Men der er de mænd som dig, der vil stå i en position af forbøn for mig.
and I will withhold my hand of heaviness because of people like
Og
you.
jeg vil holde min tyngde hånd væk på grund af mennesker som jer.
Did you hear that?
Hørte I det?
Do you see what God's doing to him?
Kan I se, hvad det er, Gud gør med ham?
My oldest daughter is 10 years old.
Min ældste datter er 10 år gammel.
She is going to be a philosopher.
Hun vil være filosof.
She has 10 questions for every answer.
Hun har 10 spørgsmål til hvert svar.
She looks like an Einstein.
Hun ser ud som en Einstein.
I'm sure one morning when she wakes up and I says good morning, and I say good morning, how are you?
Jeg er sikker på en morgen, når jeg vågner op og siger til hende, godmorgen, hvordan har du det?
She's gonna say, it's all relative.
Og så siger hun, det er relativt alt sammen.
She always has a question every time she hears me preach.
Hun har altid et spørgsmål, når hun hører mig prædike.
And I remember once studying the book of Ezekiel with her.
Og jeg kan huske en gang, så studerede jeg Ezekiels bog sammen med hende.
She was only 7 years old then.
Hun var kun 7 år gammel da.
You know what she says to me?
Ved du, hvad hun sagde til mig?
Daddy,
Far,
did Ezekiel lie on his left side for 390 days, morning, afternoon, evening, night, or did he only lie on his left side when it was time to go to bed?
så jeg lå Ezekiel 390 dage på sin venstre side, morgen, middag, aften, eller var det kun, når det var tid til at gå i seng?
So I said to her, honey, I'm an evangelist.
Så sagde jeg, skat, jeg er evangelist.
I only ask the questions. The pastors give you the answers.
Jeg stiller kun spørgsmålene, præsterne giver svarene.
This is what I said to her.
Det var, hvad jeg sagde til hende.
I said, Sari, I really don't know,
Så jeg ved det faktisk ikke,
but I'll tell you something I do know.
men jeg vil godt fortælle dig noget, som jeg ved.
Whether it was for 24-hour spans or 6 or 7-hour spans, I don't know.
Om det var i 24 timer, eller det var en 6-7 timer, det ved jeg ikke.
But I'll tell you this, at the end of 390 days, he
Yep.
walked a bit funny for a little while.
Men jeg vil godt sige, at der efter 390 dage, så gik han lidt mærkelig en tid.
You see what God's doing?
Kan du se, hvad det er, Gud gjorde?
When Ezekiel walked, he
They-
felt his message.
Da Ezekiel gik, så følte han sit
When he
budskab.
looked in the mirror, he felt his message.
Når han så sig i spejlet, så følte han budskabet.
When he looked at his walls, he felt his message.
Når han så på sin mur, så følte han
When he
budskabet.
walked outside the city walls, he felt his message.
Og når han gik udenom bymuren, så følte han budskabet.
When he ate his food,
No.
he sensed his message.
Og når han spiste sin mad, så mærkede han budskabet.
The message of God was Ezekiel's full-time activity.
Guds budskab var Ezekiels fuldtidsaktivitet.
When I was speaking at Amsterdam 83,
Da jeg talte i Amsterdam i 83,
I shared this following story with the evangelists.
der delte jeg denne følgende beretning med evangelisterne.
I received at least 2 or 3 letters from some evangelists asking me if it really happened.
Og jeg fik et brev fra i hvert fald 2-3 evangelister, som spurgte mig, om det virkelig var sket.
It did happen.
Og det gjorde det.
It happened in 1974
Det skete i 1974
in the city of New York.
i New York.
I have lived in New York for 3 years,
Jeg har boet i New York i 3 år,
and I know exactly how easy it is for something like this to happen.
og jeg ved, hvor nemt det er for noget sådan at kunne ske.
But even this is hard to believe.
Men selv det her, det er svært at tro.
It's a story of a 23-year-old girl.
Det er beretningen om en 23 år
She
gammel
lived in
pige.
a small town in Ohio,
Hun levede i en lille by i Ohio,
and she did not like the fact that in small towns too many people know too much about you.
og hun kunne ikke lide det, at i små byer, der er der alt for mange mennesker, der ved alt for meget om
So
dig.
she thought she'd move to New York,
Så hun tænkte, jeg flytter til New York.
and she went to Harlem.
Og så tog hun til Harlem.
To visit Harlem is an experience.
Det at besøge Harlem, det er noget af en
Some
oplevelse.
of my students refused to do evangelism there because they were afraid of their lives.
Nogle af mine elever, de nægtede at evangelisere der, fordi de var bange for deres liv.
In some of those apartment buildings, there's 1,000 people on every floor.
I nogle af disse lejlighedsbygninger, der er der 1000 mennesker på hver etage.
You see, within 100 miles of New York City lives 1 out of every 10 Americans.
I bare denne 100 miles omkreds af New York, der lever 1 ud af hver 10 amerikanere.
It is the most densely populated part, and Harlem is the densest in that area.
Det er den tættest befolkede del, og Harlem er den allertætteste
So
befolkede.
this 23-year-old girl checked into an apartment.
Så denne 23-årige pige, hun fik sig en lejlighed.
She didn't have a job.
Hun havde intet arbejde,
She was living on government welfare.
og hun levede på social velfærd.
The only thing she had was a German Shepherd dog.
Alt hvad hun havde, det var en hyrdehund.
She had no furniture in her apartment.
Hun havde ingen møbler i sin lejlighed.
A few days after she arrived there, she was brutally raped.
Nogle få dage efter hun kom, der blev hun brutalt voldtaget.
She wanted to go to court,
Så ønskede hun at gå ind i retten,
but it became too embarrassing.
men det var for flovt for hende.
So she decided to endure it.
Så hun besluttede sig for, at hun ville stå ud med det.
And to add insult to injury, she found out she was pregnant because of this rapacious act.
Og for at øge plagen til smerten, ja, så fandt hun ud af, at hun var gravid på grund af dette.
And now she was going to have this illegitimate child,
Og nu skulle hun have dette uægte barn,
of whose father she knew nothing about.
af hvis far hun ikke kendte noget til.
On a Wednesday morning, she felt the labor pains.
En onsdag morgen så fornemmede hun vejerne,
She went into a hospital nearby.
og hun gik ind på et hospital nærved.
Wednesday night, the baby was born.
Onsdag aften blev babyen født,
Sunday morning, she was being discharged from the hospital.
og søndag morgen blev hun udskrevet fra hospitalet.
She said to the doctor, "Can I stay one more day? My baby is not well and I don't have much money."
Hun sagde, kan jeg blive her en dag til? Mit barn har det ikke godt, og jeg har ikke mange penge.
But there weren't too many rooms in that hospital.
Men der var ikke alt for meget plads på hospitalet.
He said, "I'm sorry, we're going to have to discharge you."
Han sagde, jeg er ked af det, men vi bliver nødt til at udskrive
She
dig.
says, "Can you cash my welfare check for me, although it is only due tomorrow?"
Han sagde, kan du tage imod min velfærdscheck, selvom den først forfalder i morgen?
They said, "No, we can't do it."
Nej, det kan vi ikke, sagde han.
She had $6 in her purse.
Hun havde $6 i pungen.
She took a taxi and went to her home.
Så tog hun en taxa og tog hjem.
The taxi fare came to $4.
Taxabetalingen var $4.
And the taxi driver did not let her get off until she gave him a $1 tip.
Og taxachaufføren ville ikke lade hende komme ud, før han fik $1 i ekstra.
That left her with $1 in her purse and a sick baby.
Og så havde hun $1 tilbage og et sygt barn.
So the next morning she went to cash her welfare check,
Næste morgen så gik hun hen for at få sin understøttelse.
but because the baby was sick, she laid the baby on the floor.
Men fordi barnet var syg, så lagde hun det på gulvet.
And having no furniture,
Hun havde ingen møbler,
and she went out.
og hun gik ud.
She came back a little later,
Hun kom tilbage lidt senere,
and when she opened the door,
og da hun åbnede døren,
to her utter shock and horror,
til hendes yderste chok og forfærdelse,
she found that her German Shepherd dog that had not eaten for 5 days had devoured the baby.
der fandt hun, at hendes tyske hyrdehund, som ikke havde spist i 5 dage, havde spist barnet.
She phoned the police.
Hun ringede til politiet.
Nobody believed her.
Der var ingen, der troede hende.
They said she was a drunk.
De sagde, hun var drukken.
They thought she was insane.
De troede, hun var vanvittig.
But a neighbor pleaded with the police to come. It was true.
Men en nabo tiggede politiet om at komme, for
The
det var
whole
sandt.
city of New York was plunged into silence.
Hele New York blev tavs.
One of the commercial capitals of the world.
En af verdens hovedsteder.
And an act takes place that defies a civilized culture.
Og en handling finder sted, som virkelig anklager en civiliseret kultur.
Nobody knew what to do.
Ingen vidste, hvad de skulle gøre.
Till finally the silence was broken by a politician.
Indtil endelig blev tavsheden brudt af en politiker.
He says this:
Han sagde dette.
"How can so much go wrong in one life and nobody be alerted to it?
Hvordan kan så meget gå galt i et liv, og der er ingen, der gør noget ved det?
Where is our welfare worker when
Hvor
a woman is been raped, has gone into the hospital?
Hvor er vores velfærdsarbejdere, når en kvinde er blevet voldtaget og går på hospitalet?
Why do we license taxi drivers who through coercion are making a living?
Hvorfor giver vi licens til taxachauffører, så de kan leve?
What about our hospitals that have to discharge babies that are sick?
Hvad med vores hospitaler, som må udskrive babyer, der er syge?
But everybody was asking the same question.
Alle stillede samme spørgsmål.
Finally, one man answered it.
Og endelig var der en, der svarede på
He
det.
said, "Mr. Moynihan, do you know what you are asking?
Han sagde, herr Moynihan, ved du, hvad det er, du spørger?
Do you know how many million hurting people there are in New York City?"
Ved du, hvor mange sårede mennesker og smertende mennesker, der er i New
He
York?
says, "Sir, I have many hurting people in my family and my community.
Han sagde, herre, jeg har mange sårede mennesker mennesker i min familie og i mit samfund.
I do not have a heart big enough to listen to the cries of a whole city.
Jeg har ikke et hjerte, der er stor nok til at lytte til en hel bys skrig.
And then he said this,
Og så sagde han,
if you want me to listen to the cries of a whole city,
hvis du ønsker, at jeg skal lytte til en hel bys skrig,
you may as well ask me
så kan du lige så godt bede mig
to
om,
listen to the sound of every blade of grass that is growing,
så kan du lige så godt bede mig om at lytte til hvert blads lyd, der vokser.
and the heartbeat of every squirrel,
Og hver eneste hjerteslag i en lille æren.
because the noise would be deafening on the other side of silence.
Fordi lyden vil simpelthen være døvende på den anden side af tavsheden.
Why did I tell you this story?
Hvorfor fortæller jeg denne beretning?
Young people,
Unge mennesker,
there is nobody here who
Der-
has the heart big enough for the cries of New York City.
der er ingen her, som har et hjerte, der er stort nok for skriget fra New York.
There is only one heart that can accommodate the suffering of a whole world.
Der er kun ét hjerte, som kan rumme hele verdens lidelse,
That is the heart of God.
og det er Guds hjerte.
But follow me now.
Men følg nu med.
God takes some of that suffering,
Gud tager noget af denne lidelse,
takes a portion of it,
en del af det,
puts it into a funnel,
og så sætter han det ind i en tunnel,
and some of those heartaches are going to empty out into your heart.
og noget af det, der skal tømmes ud i dit hjerte.
You cannot carry the heartache of South Africa and Nepal and Greece all at the same time and retain your sanity.
Du kan ikke tage smerten fra Sydafrika, Nepal og Grækenland, og så samtidig bevare din sunde sans.
But I'll tell you something.
Men jeg vil sige dig noget.
God is going to take some of you this morning and narrow down South Africa in your life.
Gud vil tage nogen af jer, og så vil han indsnævre det til jeres hjerter her i dag.
He's taken some of you where the heartbeat of Nepal is beginning to pound.
Og han vil tage nogle af jer, hvor hjerteslaget fra Nepal er begyndt at slå.
And the situation in Greece is going to be the burden some of you will carry.
Og situationen i Grækenland vil være byrden, som nogen af jer skal bære.
But it's good to know
Men det er godt at vide,
that there's a heart big enough for the suffering of the world,
at der er et hjerte, der er stort nok til hele verdens lidelse.
and that God can prepare yours and mine to carry a portion of that.
Og at Gud kan bevare dit og mit til at bære en del af det.
Are you ready for it?
Er du klar til det?
I was preaching in New Zealand a month ago.
Jeg prædikede i New Zealand for en måned siden.
There were as many young people there at that meeting.
Der var lige så mange unge der, som der er her.
And one of the press reporters asked me what I made of all of this.
Og en af pressefolkene spurgte mig, hvad får du ud af alt det her?
I said there's a revolution taking place amongst the young peoples of this world.
Jeg sagde, at der er en revolution, der foregår blandt de unge i denne
It's
verden.
a revolution for God.
Det er en revolution for Gud.
And you may as well wake up to it. It's happening in many parts of the
Og I
world.
kan lige så godt vågne op til den, for det sker i mange dele af verden.
And it's happening right here in Randers.
Og det sker lige her i Randers.
God is going to hurt some of your bones.
Gud vil smerte nogle af jeres ben.
God is going to damage some of your walls.
Gud vil ødelægge nogle af jeres vægge.
God is going to make you look like a fool holding something in front of your face for a while.
Og Gud vil gøre dig til en tåbe, der holder et eller andet op for dit ansigt for en tid.
He might change some of your appearances.
Det kan godt ske, at han ændrer noget af jeres udseender.
He'll prepare you to be his servant.
Og han vil forberede jer til at blive hans tjener.
Think of what's happened in the last 2 months.
Tænk på, hvad der er sket i de sidste 2 måneder.
One innocent man was brutally bludgeoned by a couple of terrorists.
En uskyldig mand blev brutalt slået ihjel af terrorister.
His body marred to disfigurement.
Og hans legeme var fuldstændig maltrakteret til ukendelighed.
All in the name of an ideology that's masquerading as freedom fighters.
Alt sammen i navnet af en ideologi, som er maskeret som frihedskæmpere.
Then what happens?
Hvad skete der så?
An Air India jet is going from Toronto to another part of the world.
En Air India fly tager fra Toronto til en anden del af verden.
None of us knows, at least I do not know the latest. What exactly is the investigation report?
Ingen af os ved, jeg ved det i hvert fald ikke, hvad er det sidste af undersøgelsesrapporten.
Distinctly possible that a terrorist bomb blew that plane apart in midair.
Det er meget muligt, at en terroristbombe sprang den i luften.
I know one man on that plane
Jeg kendte en mand, som var på det
who was
fly,
a converted Hindu scientist
som var en omvendt hindu videnskabsmand,
working for the atomic energy in Canada,
som arbejdede for atomenergien i Canada.
going back to India for only one reason:
Han skulle tilbage til Indien af én grund,
to tell his relatives of his Christian faith.
for at fortælle hans slægtninge om hans kristne tro.
Blown up in midair.
Sprunget i luften
The riot at a soccer stadium that tramples under feet because a bag of air is going to be kicked by two teams.
Oprøret på et fodboldstadion, bare fordi en pose luft bliver sparket rundt af to team.
All this in the last 2 months.
Alt dette i løbet af de sidste 2 måneder.
Has God taken some of that burden and put it into your heart?
Har Gud taget noget af den byrde og lagt den i dit hjerte?
But very quickly, let me reverse this.
Men lad mig nu meget hurtigt vende dette.
There was another thing he did.
Der var en anden ting, som han
He
gjorde.
had to break Ezekiel from the things he loved dearly, even though they were legitimate.
Han måtte bryde Ezekiel væk fra de ting, han elskede meget, selvom de var helt i orden, de ting.
In one of the chapters, God says this:
I et af kapitlerne siger Gud dette.
before this day is over,
Før denne dag er forbi,
I will take away from you
så vil jeg fjerne fra dig
the desire of your eyes.
det, du ønsker at se.
And Ezekiel, don't cry
Og han sagde, Ezekiel, lad være med at græde,
when you see that happening.
når du ser dette ske.
And Ezekiel says, at the end of the day, my wife died.
Og Ezekiel sagde, ved afslutningen af dagen døde min kone.
And I did exactly what the Lord said.
Og jeg gjorde nøjagtigt, som Herren sagde.
I'm assuming he is saying, I didn't cry.
Og jeg antager, han sagde, jeg græd ikke.
That story is in chapter 24.
Den findes i kapitel 24, den beretning.
I used to read it many times,
Jeg plejer at læse den mange gange,
but 6 years ago, I read it in a special way.
men for 6 år siden læste jeg den på en særlig måde.
I was speaking in the city of Atlanta, Georgia.
Jeg talte i Atlanta i Georgia.
I had been away from home for many days,
Jeg havde været væk hjemmefra mange dage,
and my wife Margaret had joined me that Friday night.
og min kone Margaret var kommet derned den fredag aften.
I was seeing her after 5 weeks,
Og jeg mødtes med hende efter 5 uger,
and we were going to take a week's vacation together.
og vi skulle have en uges ferie sammen.
I picked her up at the airport,
Jeg hentede hende i lufthavnen,
and I was driving to the church where I was going to preach.
og jeg kørte til kirken, hvor jeg skulle prædike.
I picked her up at 5 p.m.
Jeg hentede hende klokken 5,
The traffic was jammed because of the rush hour.
og der var tæt trafik på grund af myldretid.
I could barely move.
Jeg kunne næsten ikke komme frem.
And then my wife, who was in her 20s, she complained.
Og så min kone, som var i 20'erne, hun klagede sig.
She said, I have a tremendous abdominal pain.
Hun sagde, jeg har en frygtelig smerte i maven.
And I thought maybe because she just got down from the plane.
Og jeg tænkte, det er nok fordi hun lige er landet.
Within 10 minutes, she was unconscious in the front seat of the car.
I løbet af 10 minutter, der var hun bevidstløs på forsædet af bilen.
I didn't know what to do.
Jeg anede ikke, hvad jeg skulle gøre.
This was a strange city to me.
Det var en fremmed by for mig.
I got onto the side, the shoulder of the highway,
Jeg kørte ud til siden af vejen,
and saw the sign of a hotel.
og jeg så, der stod hotel derovre.
The last thing she'd said to me was, I wish I could lie down.
Og det sidste, hun havde sagt, det var bare, at jeg kunne lægge mig ned.
I drove her into the hotel.
Jeg kørte hende ind til hotellet.
I really didn't know what I was doing.
Jeg anede ikke, hvad jeg gjorde.
I carried her in,
Og jeg bar hende ind,
and there was a woman going in for dinner.
og der var en dame, der gik ind for at spise.
She thought my wife had had a heart attack.
Og hun troede, at min kone havde fået et hjertetilfælde.
And so she started to pound my wife's ribs.
Så hun begyndte at slå på min kones ribben.
I could literally hear the ribs breaking as this woman was massaging her heart.
Og jeg kunne høre ribbenene brække, mens hun masserede hjertet.
I just stood there and prayed for her.
Jeg stod bare der og bad for hende.
The manager got on the phone and phoned for the ambulance.
Lederen af hotellet, han ringede efter en ambulance.
The ambulance came in a few minutes
Ambulancen kom i løbet af få minutter
and rushed her to the hospital.
og kørte hende til hospitalet.
After about 2 hours, one of the surgeons came out.
Efter omkring 2 timer kom en af kirurgerne ud.
He says, Mr. Zacharias, I don't have very good news for you.
Han sagde, Herr Zacharias, jeg har ikke gode nyheder til dem.
Your wife has been bleeding internally.
Deres kone har haft indre blødninger.
She has lost over 60% of her blood.
Hun har mistet over 60% af hendes blod.
And I can't tell you till tomorrow morning if she will come out of this.
Og jeg kan ikke sige dig før i morgen, om hun klarer det her.
I paced the floor all night long.
Jeg gik op og ned ad gulvet hele natten.
And I remember after I tried to go to sleep the next day as I knelt beside my bed.
Jeg kan huske, da jeg prøvede på, om jeg kunne falde i søvn,
And my younger brother, who was a surgeon in Canada, phoned me.
så ringede min yngre bror til mig, som var sergeant i Canada.
He said, what has the doctor said?
Han sagde, hvad sagde lægerne?
He said she'll be all right and she'll make it.
Han sagde, hun vil klare det.
He says, what were you doing?
Hvad gjorde du?
I said, I was about to get on my knees and pray.
Jeg var lige før jeg skulle knæle ned og bede.
He said, you better get right back there,
Så sagde jeg, du må hellere se at komme i gang.
because I'll tell you this.
For jeg vil gerne sige det
He
til dig.
says that is one of the highest mortality emergencies that ever comes in.
Det er en af de værste tilfælde at komme ind i. Det er den største dødsrate, der er der.
God has spared her for you.
Gud, han har bevaret hende for dig.
I know my brother Luis will testify of the anxious times he has had with the sickness his wife went through.
Jeg ved, at min bror Louis, han vil vidne om de tider, hvor han gik igennem, hvor hans kone var syg.
And I'll tell you this as an evangelist.
Jeg vil godt sige dig det som en
There
evangelist.
is nobody in the world you treasure more than the one who stands as your partner, supposedly behind the scenes.
Der er ikke nogen, som du værdsætter mere end den, der står som din partner, formodentlig altid bag scenen.
When I'm traveling in North America, I phone home every day.
Når jeg rejser i Nordamerika, ringer jeg hjem hver dag.
Because I know the strength she gives to me.
For jeg kender den styrke, hun giver mig.
Imagine if God had taken her away from me.
Lad mig nu forestille mig, at Gud havde taget hende væk fra mig.
And then said to me, don't cry.
Og så sige til mig, græd ikke.
You see what God's doing?
Kan du se, hvad det er, Gud gør?
He is causing Ezekiel to separate himself even from some of the things he dearly loved because of a special task.
Han får Ezekiel til at skille sig fra nogle af de ting, som han virkelig elsker, for et særligt mål.
Listen to me now.
Hør nu efter.
For those of us who have a hard time giving up a certain television program, we haven't got the faintest clue what Ezekiel went through.
Dem af os, der har svært ved at opgive et bestemt tv-program, vi har ingen anelse om, hvad det er, Ezekiel går igennem.
It was one of your own Danish philosophers, Søren Kierkegaard, who said this.
Det var en af jeres egne danske filosofer, Søren Kierkegaard, der sagde dette.
He said the difference between a moral man and a spiritual man is great.
Forskellen mellem et moralsk menneske og et åndeligt menneske er stor.
The moral man is only choosing between good and bad.
Det moralske menneske vælger bare mellem ondt og godt.
The spiritual man is choosing between different levels of good.
Det åndelige menneske vælger imellem forskellige niveauer af godt.
God is asking you to sever some habit you have not been able to give up.
Gud beder dig om at opgive nogle vaner, som du ikke har været i stand til at opgive.
Some relationship he may ask you to break.
Det kan være nogle forhold, han beder dig om at bryde.
Son of man, I'm preparing you to meet a nation.
Menneskesøn, jeg forbereder dig på at møde en nation.
Can I mention a couple of other things very quickly?
Kan jeg nævne nogle andre ting meget hurtigt?
Then he told Ezekiel that he must have a significant understanding of God's love.
Så fortalte han Ezekiel, du må have en virkelig forståelse af Guds kærlighed.
This is how he does it.
Og det er den her måde, han gør
He
det på.
says, son of man,
Han sagde, menneskesøn,
I was walking by the land one day.
jeg gik på landet en dag,
I heard a baby crying.
og der hørte jeg en baby,
I
der
went
græd.
over to the baby.
Jeg gik over til
It
babyen.
was newly born.
Det var nyfødt.
Even the umbilical cord was only freshly severed.
Navlestrengen var lige nylig skilt.
I took the baby to the waters.
Og jeg tog babyen hen til vandet,
I washed the body.
og jeg vaskede lægemet,
I sprinkled perfume.
og jeg stinkede parfume på,
I covered it with soft clothes.
og jeg dækkede det med bløde klæder,
And I left it in compassionate care.
og jeg efterlod det i omhyggelige pleje.
Many years went by.
Mange år gik,
I walked through the land again.
så kom jeg igennem landet
I
igen,
saw a lovely, attractive young maiden.
og der så jeg en ung, attraktiv kvinde,
I recognized her.
og jeg genkendte hende.
She lived because I had caused her to live.
Hun levede, fordi jeg havde fået hende til at leve.
She had her jewelry on her.
Hun havde sine juveler på sig.
She was beautiful to me.
Hun var skøn for mig,
I offered her my hand in marriage
og jeg tilbød hende min hånd til ægteskab
and the honor of my name.
og æren af mit navn.
She agreed to marry me.
Og hun indvilgede i at gifte sig med mig.
Israel, you were the little baby I rescued.
Israel, du var den lille baby, som
Israel, you were the young woman I married.
jeg reddede, og den unge kvinde, som jeg giftede
Now
mig
I've
med.
been married to you for all these years.
Og nu har jeg været gift med dig i alle disse år.
I wish I could say something to you.
Og nu ønsker jeg at kunne sige noget til dig.
Please follow me now,
Og følg nu med.
because this is historically powerful.
Det her det er historisk kraftfuldt.
He says, I wish I could call you a prostitute,
Jeg ønsker, at jeg kunne kalde dig for en prostitueret.
because a prostitute has at least one thing in defense of herself.
For en prostitueret har der i det mindste én ting til forsvar for sig
She
selv.
says she is paid by her lovers to lie with them.
Hun siger, jeg betaler mine elskere for at ligge med dem.
Israel, you are worse.
Israel, du er værre.
You are paying your lovers to lie with you.
Du betaler dine elskere for at ligge med dig.
Do you understand what's happening?
Forstår du, hvad det er, der sker?
In 795 before Christ,
I 795 før Kristus,
through Hosea,
igennem Hoseas,
whose wife became a prostitute.
hvis kone blev prostitueret,
The worst thing God could say to Israel was that you are like Hosea's wife.
der var det værste Gud kunne sige til Israel, du er som Hoseas' hustru.
Now 200 years after Hosea,
Nu 200 år efter Hoseas,
there's irony in this.
så er der denne ironi i dette.
He says, if I called you a prostitute, that would be flattering to you. You are even worse.
Hvis jeg kaldte dig for en prostitueret, så ville det være en smiger for dig, du er værre.
You know what breaks my heart when I come to Europe?
Ved du, hvad der knuser mit hjerte, når jeg kommer til Europa?
Because as a professor who has been involved in theology and church history,
Som professor, der har været involveret i teologi og kirkehistorie,
I like to think of what Europe used to be.
så plejer jeg at tænke på, hvad Europa var engang.
The stomping ground of Calvin,
Det var der Calvin begyndte,
of Luther,
og Luther,
of Zwingli,
og Zwingli,
of Savonarola.
og Savonarola.
And today a businessman is surprised that there could be 2,000 people here talking about world missions.
Og i dag så er en forretningsmand forbavset over 2.000 mennesker kunne samles her for at tale om verdens
I wonder
mission.
what God would say to Europe today.
Kan jeg vide, hvad Gud vil sige til Europa i dag?
But remember, folks,
Men husk nu,
let us never forget
lad os aldrig glemme
God's significant love for Europe.
Guds bemærkelsesværdige kærlighed til Europa.
His love for the Middle East.
Hans kærlighed for Mellemøsten,
His love for the whole world.
hans kærlighed for hele verden.
He picks us up when we're babies.
Han tager os op, når vi er babyer,
He loves us as young maidens are loved.
og han elsker os som unge,
And he wants to win us over with the power of his love.
og han ønsker at vinde os igen med kraften i sin kærlighed.
When you look at the cross,
Når du ser på korset,
you think of all the hymns songwriters have written on the cross.
så tænk på alle de salmer og salmeskribenter har skrevet om
I
korset.
doubt if there is any other theme on the world that has occupied artist and songwriter more than those two pieces of timber.
Jeg tvivler på, at der er noget emne, der har beskæftiget kunstnere mere end disse 2 stykker tømmer.
What language shall I borrow?
Hvilket sprog skal jeg bruge?
To thank you, dearest friend,
Til at takke dig, kære ven,
for this your dying sorrow,
for denne din døende sorg,
your pity without end.
din medlidenhed uden ende.
Oh, make me thine forever.
Gør mig til din for
And
evigt.
should I fainting be,
Og skulle jeg svigte,
Lord, let me never
så herre, lad det aldrig ske,
outlive my love for thee.
at jeg glemmer min kærlighed til dig.
God's love.
Guds kærlighed.
Fourthly and briefly again,
Kort igen,
and I promise I'll rush through this.
og jeg vil skynde mig igennem det.
He wanted them to understand what sin was.
Han ønskede, at de skulle forstå, hvad synd
Now,
var.
if you follow this argument, you'll see what I mean.
Hvis du følger dette, så vil du se, hvad det er, jeg mener.
Ingmar Bergman has written a play.
Ingmar Bergman har skrevet et skuespil,
Ingmar Bergman has written many plays.
og Ingmar Bergman har skrevet mange skuespil.
One of his plays is called Wild Strawberries.
Og et af hans skuespil hedder Vilde Jordbær.
This is a conversation that takes place.
Og det er en samtale, der foregår.
A judge comes to a court of law.
Det er en dommer, der kommer ind i en retssal.
And the judge, a professor comes to a court of
Jeg
law.
mener, en professor kommer ind i en retssal.
And the judge looks at the professor.
Og dommeren ser på professoren,
And he says to the professor, Professor, I find you guilty.
og han siger til professoren, jeg kender dig skyldig.
And the professor says, what am I guilty of?
Og professoren siger, hvad er jeg skyldig i?
And the judge says, you are guilty of guilt.
Og dommeren siger, du er skyldig i skyld.
And the professor says, is that serious?
Og professoren siger, er det alvorligt?
And the judge says, very serious.
Og dommeren siger, meget alvorligt.
Keep that story at the back of your mind.
Prøv at huske denne beretning i
And look at
baghovedet.
this story now.
Og så hør på denne.
An 18-year-old girl came to talk to me after a meeting.
En 18-årig pige kom for at tale med mig efter et møde.
She'd had an abortion when she was 16.
Hun havde fået en abort, da hun var 16.
And she says, I've not been able to sleep through one night in 2 years.
Hun sagde, jeg har ikke været i stand til at sove en nat igennem i 2 år.
I keep thinking of what I've done.
Jeg bliver ved med at tænke på, hvad jeg har gjort.
When I see little babies, I wonder if that's the type of baby I murdered.
Og når jeg ser små babyer, så tænker jeg, var det barn, jeg myrdede?
She said, can you help me?
Kan du hjælpe mig?
And she kept using the word guilt, guilt, guilt.
Hun blev ved med at bruge ordet skyld.
And I knew I had to do something before I could help her.
Og jeg vidste, jeg måtte gøre noget, før jeg kunne hjælpe hende.
If you're only guilty of guilt, you've got a problem.
Hvis du kun er skyldig i skyld, så har du et problem.
I had to bring her to a point of saying, I am guilty of sin.
Jeg måtte bringe hende til det punkt, hvor hun kunne sige, at jeg er skyldig i synd.
And as soon as she said that, I said, madam, I have a savior for you.
Og så snart hun sagde det, sagde jeg, men her har jeg en frelser for dig.
Secular psychology cannot help us.
Verdslig psykologi kan ikke hjælpe os,
Because it only talks of guilt.
for det taler kun om skyld.
The Bible talks of sin,
Men Bibelen taler om synd,
which is a violation of God's law.
som er en overtrædelse af Guds bud.
And there is forgiveness.
Og der findes der tilgivelse.
Ezekiel had to understand that sin had a vertical dimension before it had a horizontal dimension.
Og Ezekiel måtte forstå, at synd havde en vertikal dimension, før det havde en horisontal.
So he gave him that understanding of God's love,
Så han gav ham denne forståelse af Guds
the
kærlighed,
understanding of sin,
forståelse af synd.
and lastly,
Og til sidst,
he gave him the confidence that God would triumph over all the nations.
så gav han ham tilliden, at Gud ville triumfere over alle
It is
nationer.
so nice to know that.
Og det er så godt at vide det,
That we have already read the last chapter,
at vi allerede har skrevet det sidste kapitel, set det.
and it says in 2 words, we win.
Og der står med 2 ord, vi vinder.
Have you ever opened a book and you want to read the end before you read the middle?
Har du nogensinde åbnet en bog og sige, jeg vil lige læse slutningen, før du læser midten?
Well, that's what God has given to us.
Det er det, Gud har givet til os.
11 out of the 12 disciples died a martyr's death.
11 ud af de 12 disciple døde som martyrer.
He spared one of them
Han lod en af dem blive,
to take him to the Isle of Patmos
for at sætte ham ud på øen Patmos,
so that he could write to us and tell us we win.
så han kunne skrive til os, vi vinder.
And it's a good book to read when you're worried.
Og det er en god bog at læse, når du er bekymret.
The confidence of God's program.
Tilliden til Guds program.
I have 2 illustrations for you and then I close.
Jeg har 2 illustrationer til jer, og så slutter jeg.
Dr. Martin Luther King
Dr. Martin Luther King,
was a civil rights fighter.
han var en frihedskæmper for borgerrettigheder.
I consider him to be one of the most eloquent speakers I have ever heard.
Jeg betragter ham som en af de mest excellente talere, som jeg
He
nogensinde har
had
hørt.
the ability to take words and fuse them with images that were amazing.
Han havde evnen til at tage ord og så sammensmelte dem med billeder, der var helt forbavsende.
And you remember he won the Nobel Prize once.
Og I kan huske, at han engang vandt Nobels fredsprisen.
And he came to Oslo to receive the prize.
Der kom han til Oslo for at modtage den.
I'll never forget his speech.
Og jeg glemmer aldrig hans tale.
One paragraph says something like this:
En sætning sagde noget i denne retning.
I accept this award today
Jeg modtager denne belønning i
with a
dag
tremendous faith in the future of mankind.
med en vældig tro på menneskehedens fremtid.
He says, I refuse to believe
Jeg nægter at tro, sagde han,
that we are going to destroy ourselves with a nuclear war.
at vi skal ødelægge os selv med en atomkrig.
He says, I refuse to believe
Jeg nægter at tro, sagde han,
that man is so evil that good can never reign in him.
at mennesket er så ondt, at godhed aldrig kan regere i det.
He says, I refuse to believe
Jeg nægter at tro,
that the day of peace and brotherhood is not going to be a reality.
at dagen med fred og broderskab ikke skal være en realitet.
I was waiting to hear what he did believe.
Og jeg ventede på at høre, hvad tror han?
That's what he said.
Og det er, hvad han sagde.
He said, I believe. Now
Jeg tror,
listen carefully.
og lyt nu,
Unarmed truth
at ubevæbnet sandhed
and unconditional love
og betingelsesløs kærlighed
will have the final day in reality.
vil have virkelighedens sidste dag.
And yet, if I were a skeptic, do you know what I would say?
Og hvis jeg var en skeptiker, ved du hvad så jeg vil sige?
Dr. King,
Dr. King,
do you know
ved du,
that one day
at en dag,
an armed lie
der var der en bevæbnet løgn,
is going to blow your brains out?
som vil skyde din hjerne ud.
Don't you feel that way sometimes?
Føler du det ikke sådan samtidig?
Armed lies are stronger than unarmed truth. Don't you feel that?
At bevæbnet løgn er stærkere end ubevæbnet sandhed?
Oh no, my friend.
Nej, mine venner.
If it is God's truth
Hvis det er Guds sandhed
and God's love,
og Guds kærlighed,
it will have
så vil det
the final day
få den sidste dag
in reality.
i virkeligheden.
That is the confidence you and I have.
Det er den tillid, du og jeg har.
God took a 30-year-old young man.
Gud tog en 30-års ung mand.
He took a vast burden and narrowed it down into his little heart.
Han tog en stor byrde, og så snævrede han den ind til hans lille hjerte.
He asked him to give up some of the things he dearly loved to free him for the gospel.
Og han bad ham om at opgive noget af det, han elskede, for at sætte ham fri til evangeliet.
He gave him a significant understanding of God's love.
Og han gav ham en yderste forståelse af Guds kærlighed.
He gave him a right understanding of sin.
Og han gav ham en rigtig forståelse af synd.
And he gave him a confidence in God's program.
Og han gav ham en tillid til Guds program.
And God said, when they have finished all history, they will know that you were a prophet of God.
Og Gud sagde, når de er færdige med hele historien, så vil de vide, at du var en Guds profet.
Here's my final story for you.
Og så min sidste historie til jer.
I came to Christ as a teenager in Delhi.
Jeg kom som teenager til Kristus i Delhi.
I had attempted to commit suicide.
Jeg havde prøvet på at begå selvmord.
I was lying on a hospital bed at the age of 17.
Jeg lå i en hospitalseng i en alder af 17 år.
I don't think I knew one theologically accurate statement.
Jeg ved ikke, om jeg kendte nogen som helst teologiske udtalelser.
And as I lay on that bed, a man brought a small red New Testament for me to read.
Men da jeg lå på denne seng, der kom der en mand med et lille rødt Nyt Testamente til mig, jeg kunne
And it
læse.
was on that bed of suicide, in a King James, an old language that I couldn't easily understand. The Spirit of God broke through and reached down in me.
Og det var i denne hospitalseng, at dette gammeldags King James sprog, det nåede igennem til mig.
Shortly after that, my parents moved to Canada.
Kort tid derefter flyttede mine forældre til Canada.
I had trained in hotel management.
Jeg var uddannet til at lede hotel.
I was working as a banqueting manager of a large hotel in Toronto, Canada.
Og jeg arbejdede som den, der ledte banketterne i et stort hotel i Canada.
When my life began to get involved in a lifestyle I knew could not be pleasing to God.
Da mit liv begyndte at blive involveret i en livsstil, som jeg vidste ikke kunne behage Gud.
And to make a long story short, I sensed the call of God to be an evangelist.
Og for at gøre en lang historie kort, så fornemmede jeg Guds kald til at blive evangelist.
But my father wasn't a Christian.
Men min far var ikke en kristen.
My mother wasn't a Christian.
Min mor var ikke en kristen.
And I knew what it would mean.
Og jeg vidste, hvad det ville betyde.
If I resigned my job from the hotel, my father would never be able to forgive me for it.
Hvis jeg tog min afsked fra hotellet, så ville min far aldrig kunne tilgive mig.
But I had to do it.
Men jeg måtte gøre det.
For 5 weeks, he didn't talk to me.
I 5 uger talte han ikke med mig.
And then 5 weeks later, he came to Christ.
Og 5 uger senere, så kom han til Kristus.
And it made all the difference
Og
in
det
the
gjorde
world.
hele verdens forskel.
He is in heaven now, smiling the widest that I am up here preaching the gospel.
Og han er i himlen og smiler stort over, at jeg her prædiker evangeliet.
And in my brief ministry, this is one of the conclusions I've come to.
Og i min korte tjeneste er dette en af konklusionerne, jeg er kommet til.
For most young people,
For de fleste unge,
there's generally one thing standing between God's will and them.
så er der som regel bare én ting, der står imellem dem og Guds vilje.
It's not a plurality of problems.
Det er ikke en mængde problemer.
It's one thing.
Det er én ting.
It could be a habit.
Det kunne være en vane.
It could be a relationship.
Det kunne blive et forhold.
It could be a career.
Det kunne være en karriere.
You know best what it is in your life.
Du ved bedst, hvad det er i dit liv.
Would you do yourself the greatest favor this morning
Vil du gøre dig selv den største tjeneste denne morgen,
and bring that one barrier to the altar of God
og komme med denne ene barriere til Guds alter,
and say it's yours?
og sige, det er dit.
This is the story that I began to tell 3 minutes ago.
Det var den historie, jeg begyndte at fortælle for 3 minutter siden.
It's a parable out of India.
Det er en lignelse fra Indien.
A rich man wanted to buy a village,
En rig mand ønskede at købe en by,
so he goes into the village.
så han går ind i byen.
He gives some money to the first man, buys up his hut.
Han giver nogle penge til den første mand, køber hans hytte.
Goes to the second man, buys up his hut.
Går til den anden mand, køber hans hytte.
Goes to the third man, buys up his hut.
Til den tredje og køber hans hytte.
Then he sees a very arrogant old man sitting in an old hut.
Så ser han en meget arrogant gammel mand, der sidder i en gammel hytte.
And he says to the man, here's 100 rupees. Your hut is worth nothing. Here's 100 rupees. Give me your hut.
Så her er 100 rupees, din hytte er ingenting værd. Giv mig din hytte.
The man says, I don't want to sell it.
Manden siger, nej, jeg vil ikke sælge den.
So what do you mean you don't want to sell it? It's worth nothing. I'm giving you 100 rupees.
Hvad mener du med, at du ikke vil sælge den? Jeg giver dig 100 rupees for den. Det er ingenting værd.
I don't want to sell it.
Jeg vil ikke sælge den.
200 rupees.
200 rupees.
I don't want to sell it.
Nej, jeg vil ikke sælge den.
500 rupees.
500 rupees.
I don't want to sell it.
Jamen, jeg vil ikke sælge den.
1,000.
1000.
He said, sir, listen to me for the last time.
Hør nu for mig. Sidste gang.
I don't want to sell it.
Jeg vil ikke sælge den.
So the rich man went away.
Så den rige mand gik.
Next day, he'd brought some of his friends into that village.
Næste dag så bragte han nogle af sine venner
And he
ind i
was
byen.
showing them the whole village.
Og han viste dem hele byen.
And the old man comes out of the hut and calls one of the friends close.
Og en af den gamle mand kommer ud og kalder på en af vennerne.
He says, "Excuse me, sir.
Og siger, sig mig engang, kom her.
Is that rich man telling you he owns this whole village?"
Siger den rige mand, at han ejer hele byen?
Don't believe him.
Lad være med at tro ham.
This one little hut right in the middle still belongs to me.
Der er en lille hytte lige midt i, som stadig tilhører mig.
How many times have you stood up and sung, "All to Jesus I surrender"?
Hvor mange gange har du stået op og sunget, alt jeg overgiver til Jesus?
And Satan looks over to God
Og Satan ser op til Gud
and he says, "God, I want to talk to you for a moment.
og siger, Gud, jeg vil gerne tale lidt med dig.
Is that young person telling you he surrendered everything to you?"
Siger den unge person, at han har overgivet alt til dig?
Don't believe him.
Lad være med at tro ham.
This one part of that person's life still belongs to me.
Der er en del, som stadigvæk tilhører mig.
The world is in crisis.
Verden er i krise.
God needs hearts to prepare.
Gud har brug for hjerter, som han kan forberede.
He sovereignly chooses whom he calls.
Og han vælger suverænt den, som han kalder.
But you must respond to that call.
Men du må svare på det kald.
And when you say yes, he will prepare you.
Og når du siger ja, så vil han forberede dig.
7 who's, he calls John the Baptist.
Der var 7 fra den blå bog, men han kaldte Johannes
A
døberen.
nation of brilliant scribes and thinkers.
Det var en nation med kloge hoveder og tænkere.
He calls a 30-year-old man to do some weird
Og
things.
så kalder han en 30-årig til at gøre nogle mærkelige ting.
But when he was finished, they knew a prophet had been in the midst of
Men
them.
da han var færdig, så vidste de, at en profet havde været i deres midte.
You have been so patient
I har været så tålmodige
and so good.
og så gode.
Would you bow your heads in prayer with me,
Vil I
please?
bøje jeres hoveder og bede med mig?
Our dear Lord and Master,
Vores kære Herre og Mester,
we bring to you our hearts this morning.
vi bringer vores hjerter til dig denne formiddag.
Lord, I thank you for the sounds of laughter in this hall.
Herre, jeg takker dig for latterens rungen i hallen.
For only, as we were reminded last night, can Christians truly laugh.
For som vi blev mindet om det i går aften, så er det kun de kristne, der i sandhed kan
I
le.
thank you for the hint of tears in some eyes.
Jeg takker dig for tårerne i nogle øjne.
I thank you for the silent assent that's being given to this message.
Jeg takker dig for denne tavse bekræftelse, der er givet i dette budskab.
More than anything else, oh God, I thank you that you are who you are
Og mere, Gud, takker jeg dig for, at du er den, du er.
and that you can make us what you want us to be.
Og du kan gøre os til det, du ønsker, vi skal være.
Thank you for these dear young people.
Tak for disse kære unge.
And I pray in these moments that some of them will give up that one passion.
Og jeg beder om i dette øjeblik, at nogen af dem vil opgive denne ene lidenskab.
I'm going to ask you to make a silent prayer now.
Og jeg vil gerne bede jer om at komme med en stille bøn nu.
Build an altar where you are.
Byg et alter der, hvor du er.
In the case of C.T. Studd, it was his family.
Da det galt C.T. Studd, så var det hans familie.
In the case of Henry Martin, it was the girl he dearly loved.
Henry Martins tilfælde, der var det en pige, som han elskede.
In the case of Adoniram Judson, it was his pride of intellectual strength.
Og i Adonai Judsons tilfælde, der var det stoltheden over hans intellekt.
I don't know what it is for you this morning,
Jeg ved ikke, hvad det er for dig,
but in the next quiet moment,
men i det næste stille øjeblik,
give it to God.
så giv det til Gud.